It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is June 4th, 2025. I'm officially 90 years old as of being born in 1935, June 4th, 1935. Graduated from high school.
And you were a nonagenarian. That's what you're classified as now, Brad.
What is again? I was coughing because I'm so old.
It's a nonagenarian.
Like N-O-N-A? Nonagenarian? Is that what it is?
Yeah, nonagenarian, yeah.
So that's when you're in your 90s.
Correct.
Okay, John. We are trying to support local broadcasters, local radio stations. And Monday I did a video for KLIS, which is the new Lou Information Station, a.k.a. the former KFNS. And yesterday I did one for KBDZ, okay? And I have been listening to both KBDZ and KLIS. Can I give you a couple little thoughts with KLIS?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay.
And what shows have you sent me a screenshot yesterday with no context?
Yes.
So, of course, like most texts from you with no context, I don't bother replying. And what was your feedback on that piece of it, Brad?
The afternoon show from 4 to 6, and I know one of the two participants. Her name is Kelly Lamb. I think she's married now. She's married to the guy who was in the show. And here was my thing, okay? I'm driving around yesterday afternoon. I'm out in the Westplex, and I'm going, I'm going to listen to KLIS. So I listen to KLIS, and it's called the St. Louis Show or something like that with Kelly and Gordon, okay? So Gordon sounds just fine. And Kelly sounds like she's in a rain barrel. She's like like underwater or something like that. And even he sounds a little bit funky. And I'm not trying to be super critical of KLIS because they're working things out. They've got some audio issues, okay? So I listened to this for a while, and it's to the point where I'm driving around, and I can't really understand what Kelly is saying because she's incredibly off mic. So I'm thinking to myself, I get back to my office and I go to their site and look at it and they go, hey, click here to watch our shows live. So I clicked on the thing, and what I sent you was the screenshot. They're not doing this in a radio studio. This looks like some fancy schmancy, high tech, high production value studio, their studio, TV studio they're doing this in. And instead of having your obligatory, which now everybody has no problems with, the big old SM7 microphones or the RE20 microphones sitting in the podcast environment with video, they are sitting in a fancy couch with very fancy, like lights on each side of them, and a nice, like a coffee table in front of them, and they have on lavalier microphones. And apparently her lavalier microphone is not working. And the only reason you're hearing her is because you're hearing her through her co-host, who I believe is her husband, Gordon's microphone. And I'm not trying to be a critical dude, but this went on for like almost the entire show. And I'm going like, doesn't anybody, can't they, when they take a break, Kelly, your microphone's not working. We're going to give you a hand microphone. You know what I mean? It was just sort of like it. Yeah,
and as you mentioned, Brad, this is their first week on the air. Yesterday probably would have been their second show, right? First or second show?
Yes, second show, yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's probably fair to say day 2 of a radio station, they're probably working out some technical kinks, wouldn't you say?
I get it, but see, John, I guess what I'm sort of scratching my head on, this is a radio show, okay? And I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to transcend the fact that they're a radio station, because nobody wants...
they're not just a linear thing. They actually want to invest some money into making a multimedia presence, right?
Right, but... it would be like you and me. It would be like you and me if we did a video show and we had video cameras in the studio and I'm in a tux and you're in a tux. And in the background, you see all our gold-plated appliances, and you see the fact that we are, in the background, you see my Ferrari and my Lamborghini, and in your background, you see the fact that you see...
Yeah, we get it. We get the idea. Go ahead.
Your harem of 23 young women who all are less than 100 pounds in weight, and
they're all 23 years old. Yeah,
and they're all ovulating.
So go ahead, Brad. We get it.
Right.
Yep, go ahead.
I just think it's a little overkill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't. I think that the show probably, I think the point of that show, as I heard Dave Green explain it on the Saturday or the Sunday prior, I think the point of that show is to talk about the important happenings that are happening in town. If you were interested in socialite type activities or what's happening, you probably like to see a nice aesthetic. You probably don't want to see a guy in a wife beater sitting in a studio, the camera pointing up at his double chin, blabbing on about some sort of local happenings, reading from a calendar. I think you probably want to see a nice looking studio. And maybe those folks, Brad, I don't know those folks, but maybe they're more comfortable sitting on a nice couch, talking into a lav mic, and maybe they'll just work the technical sound aspects on day number 2. Maybe they'll just work that out. Maybe Dave Green, I'm just speculating here, is more interested in putting together a compelling multimedia channels, making some money, doing some interesting stuff, rather than making sound levels his number one priority.
You know, the interesting part of that is, John, that if you go to a restaurant and you order a steak and it comes out that it hasn't even been on the grill, and you go like, I don't think this has even been cooked. And they say, well, you know what? We're working some things out in the back. We got a new cook back there. And he just says that he can't get the burner going. Just eat it. Just call it steak tartare. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah. And I remember, Brad, when we started the show in November of 2023, and I asked you about a live stream because people wanted to listen to the show live. I know it was fascinating for you to do a show that important people actually wanted to listen to. And we weren't able to get a live stream up for several months. And I mean, I think somebody could have made the argument, hey, if you're a radio show, probably the most basic thing you could do is get a live stream going. And so, I mean, I think everybody gave you a bunch of grace because you had, folks who were living under the radio tower in Washington could hear us. And then they could hear us because I would link to it on my website, the audio files. But I guess my point is it took you a while to get a live stream up, which is a really basic radio thing. And people gave you grace. I would give grace to KLIS for having a couple technical issues in the first couple days.
John, the reason for that was we couldn't because the your lobbyist friend from Ameren UE, we were waiting for the new drop to our studio because if we turn if we turn the streaming computer off, it blew our meter off the meter base and we went off the air. I bet it
did. So I think KLIS, by the way, I watched Vic's show for a little while this morning. They do a great job. They actually invest in not only promoting their radio station, but they actually have real technology. And so, there's always going to be a couple technical kinks and technical issues. But to see a local radio station actually put some effort in and do something like that, I think is awesome.
John,
I'm sure you have criticism of KBDZ too. And what is that?
No, wonderful station.
That you were about to say you listened to both of them yesterday.
Yeah. KBDZ is not my cup of tea. I've never been a KSHE fan. When I was a kid, I was never a KSHE fan because of the fact that it just wasn't my jam. I was a top 40 guy, always, through and through. You go back in the 60s and 70s and people go like, oh my God, it was great. Grateful Dead, The Who, Bachman Turner Overdrive, all those, acts back there. To me, it was like, it was the Osmonds, it was Billy Joel Royal, it was the Beatles, it was Rolling Stones. It's interesting thing. Back in the day, you never would hear Beatles or Rolling Stones and KSHE because that was too top 40. If they played, if they played it on a top 40 station, we're not going to play that. Matter of fact, it was the running joke when I worked at the original KSOQ that if we picked up a song that KSHE was playing, it was immediately pulled off of KSHE. It was gone. If we started playing it, they took it off the air, and it was never to be heard again because of the fact that it's not. It's if KSOQ's playing it, our KSHE fans.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to play it. So, Brett, I watched your KBDZ clip yesterday, and I thought it was gracious of you, and you gave a shout out to Randy Rayleigh and Kevy Kev, and of course the most important person in your life on that station, which is Katie Cruz. Now walk us through, Brad, for people who don't know how genuinely magnanimous you are. You're going to record these videos, and the benefit of doing it is not just so you could say I promote local radio, a rising tide lifts all boats, that whole thing. Do you think people will see your videos and then start listening to those stations?
Well, obviously they have, and with the woman.
Well, one person contacted you and didn't know, so that's a sample size of one, which is awesome.
John.
And then most importantly, though, it gives you the opportunity later on to go to these folks and say, "Look, I even did a video. My Twitter video had 12 views. I've been promoting you guys. Why aren't you calling me back?" Is that the point of it?
No, I don't even care. Here's my thing. I am a radio guy through and through, okay? That is me, okay? I am so sick and tired of the image that there's two people with a crystal radio set and the entire St. Louis listening to radio, when year after year after year the Nielsen ratings come out and radio rules everything. You're Mr. Twitter guy, but the interesting part of that is with radio, to a large degree, there are no rules. But if I do something like if I blink with my left eye on a Twitter video, John will say, well, you're not supposed to blink with your left eye on a Twitter video.
That's not true. I think the attention seeking and the desperation is generally the only things that I've criticized. But go ahead, Brad.
Well, I see there comes a time when people have to say, look, we have to essentially band together. And I give this example all the time. All the time. You go to YouTube, and it's not just in the car segment that I view. There's collabs. And for a long time in the music business, you would never have Elton John doing a project with another artist. It was always Elton John, or it was always, insert big name here. Now it's the thing. It's the collab thing. How many songs am I playing in Westplex 107.1 that are like 2 and 3 big stars getting together, and sometimes they're not even in a studio at the same time. That's a whole nother thing. Is because of the fact that if you got one star, one big rock star or pop star on a song, and if you have
we get it. So your point, go ahead, get back to radio or something relevant.
Well,
your idea was that radio folks need to band together.
As the tide rises, so do all boats. And the interesting part of this is that I just read something the other day that in an average local media market, it used to be that if the advertising pie, let's say the advertising pie was 100%, and you divided up that pie, the local newspaper, in our case, the Post-Dispatch got X amount of that, and the local TV stations got X amount of that, and the TV, and the billboard companies got X amount of that kind of stuff. Okay, now almost in every market, the rolling average is between 65 and 75% of the advertising revenue, which used to be local in that market, is now digital, which means it's going to what's-his-face, Zuckerberg and to,
That's awesome. So people are learning how to be efficient and rewarding efficiency. That's good news, right?
John has fun with me because the interesting part of this is that, John, when you were at Washington University, did you ever take a macroeconomics class?
I did. Yeah, I took macro and micro.
Okay, and what did you learn from macroeconomics? Give me just a short Washington University dissertation on what you learned in macroeconomics.
I would say the biggest takeaway from that class was that wealth means options, and that the markets are generally efficient. So if a small business owner, if MacArthur's Bakery wants to sell more cakes, and they can go to a rickety old radio station, and the radio station, first of all, can't even provide them a decent coverage map, much less tell them how many people listen on an average week. Or MacArthur's Bakery can go to Facebook, and Facebook can tell them exactly how to reach moms between the age of 35 and 45 in a specific geographic area. It does make sense for MacArthur's to advertise with Facebook instead of the rickety old radio station that wastes their time, can't give them a decent coverage map, and can't tell them how many people listen.
John, you're always so nice to me. I appreciate that.
What does this have to do with you, Brad? I'm just talking about rickety old radio stations that don't invest in proper sales materials versus a business is going to go somewhere where they can actually get an ROI. And by the way, Facebook, Brad, and I've done Facebook ads, I've done Instagram ads, I've done Amazon KDP ads, are able to provide you data with how many people saw your ad, how many people clicked on your ad. So if you're a marketing guy, I had a conversation with someone last week about this, Brad. If you're buying radio for a corporation, this person said, how does somebody expect to sell radio ads if they can't even tell you exactly what their coverage map is and approximate number of daily listeners? And I said, exactly. Why do you think people are going to Facebook and write your check to Meta? Don't write it, or write it to a local radio station like Odyssey, who can actually give you some decent data, And that's why I'm a believer in radio, Brad. There's a lot of radio folks, and this is where I've changed my opinion since working with you. There are a lot of radio folks who are super competent, who have data. And I used to think that, nobody listens to radio anymore. And you're right. I think some of the industry data is correct. I was just going through NAFB, National Association of Foreign Broadcasters data 2 nights ago for a new project. And people spend money on ag radio. People want to sponsor ag radio. And so you've been right this whole time, Brad. I guess that's the bottom line.
No, I'm always right. I'm always wrong, John. See, here's my advice. My advice is take my advice and do the
then do the opposite thing, and you'll never go wrong.
Do just right. Okay, moving along. Okay, I said this, and see, once again, I never say anything right. I always say stuff.
Shouldn't we talk about a radio subject that 6 people in town want to hear about, Brad?
No. I want to talk about the fact that I have made this comment through you many times about the fact that our defense system is not in the right direction. And my point to you was, and not to belittle the boys up in NOCO with turning out the F-18s that Corey Bush wanted to shut down, but the fact that one F-18, I don't know, what's it take? A month, a year, 2 years to build an F-18?
A long time, yeah.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars. Okay, we had this situation recently where this incredible drone strike against the Russian airfields by the Ukrainians, okay? And the more stuff that comes out about this, there are military experts. I've read 2 different stories, and both of the stories have said this is a game changer. This is a game changer. And matter of fact, what's interesting is now in the United States, all of a sudden, people have decided that, like, hey, maybe it's not a good thing that we let the Chinese people buy the farmland near our Air Force bases and near our military installations. No, seriously. And matter of fact, this is a story that was big yesterday. The governor of Arizona, they already had a bill in the works, which would essentially make it very tough for specifically Chinese government to buy property near military installations. You know how it is in the Southwest and in the West. There's a lot of military bases out there. Okay, and what's interesting is the Arizona governor, Katie Hobbs, she vetoed the bill. Essentially says, no, I don't think this is right. The Chinese people want to buy stuff next to our Air Force bases. Who are we to say they can't do that? Okay, now, the interesting thing about it is let's go and let's review what happened with this attack from Ukraine on Russia. They built these very ingenious trailers. They were like tractor trailer, and they were like almost like shipping containers. And they had like these doors on the top. And in each they had all these like little compartments inside this container, and remote control, and they drove these tractor trailers up and drove them and parked them next to 5 Air Force bases. One of the trailers malfunctioned. It didn't do anything. But they pulled them not on the military base, but close to them, on a piece of property, on a street, in a parking lot, stuff like that. And they parked them. And then the guys got in a car, left, probably went back to Ukraine. And then remotely, at the same time, they activated all 4 of these trailers. One of them didn't work. And these drones flew out of these trailers, flew a mile or 2, very short distance to the Air Force base, and blew up these Russian planes. Okay? All of a sudden, people are going like, oh boy, think about that for a minute. Think about that. That could happen right here. We've got a big Air Force base right across the river, Scott Air Force Base. Okay? I've been to Scott Air Force Base many times. And a lot of times, there's planes sitting out on the runway. You go up to North County at Lambert. Sometimes you see the F-18 sitting on the tarmac there. Ones that they've fixed or they've got done production, stuff like that. Who's to say that somebody, and I'm not trying to say this should happen, but somebody who is sitting up in Lindbergh pulls a tractor trailer into the parking lot of a convenience store up there in Lindbergh where the old Ford plant used to be, and walks away from the tractor trailer, and remotely somebody in Beijing hits a button and the top of the tractor trailer opens up and these drones go and they swarm Boeing and they blow up all the F-18s. Get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a frightening thought, right? Every time you see one of those planes, you think you could just have a fleet of drones coming out. They could have listened to the Brad and John show and heard Brad talk for a long time about how there's asymmetrical warfare and how our opponents would be wise to use it against us, right?
Well, we should be wise to, I go back to the Revolutionary War. Remember, the redcoats lined up in a line and they had their
and what happened, Brad? How did we beat them?
Because we jumped up behind a rock and we climbed up in a tree and we shot them and we killed them because of the fact that they were wearing red coats, which essentially is like, hey, shoot me. Now, I'm not wearing camo. I'm wearing a red coat.
And they marched in formation, right? And our soldiers were willing to do something unconventional, right? They were disruptors, as you would say, Brad.
Asymmetrical warfare, John. Asymmetrical warfare, and that is why we don't sit on couches. Because when our battle with KLIS, we would never.
We are not battling KLS, but that's funny.
We would never sit on a couch with the fancy lamps behind us, and a nice coffee table in front of us. We would never do that, John, because we're the ground fighters. We're the guys.
Our next show is going to be broadcast live from Restoration Hardware, and Brad's not going to have any idea what to do because he's never sat on a leather couch before.
John, can I shock you?
Yeah, you got one from Facebook Marketplace. You drove to East St. Louis, and it turns out the guy didn't actually own it.
I have 2 leather couches, not one.
Wow,
but 2.
so you drove around a nice neighborhood, and you threw one in the back of your truck when somebody had thrown out. That's awesome. I love that you saved it from a landfill, Brad.